If you're a geologist, you've heard of Gilboa, New York. Not many around here maybe realize, though, how world famous we are.
Gilboa, New York, situated at the top edge of the Schoharie Reservoir, boasts one of the oldest forests in the world, like 380 million years old. The trees are gone, of course, but the fossils remain and depict a Catskill forest unlike anything we know today. Tropical fern-like trees inhabited the edge of land and sea at a time when the lungfish made its first forays onto land. This is such ancient history that the Catskills themselves weren't even here. This is before continental drift brought us to our current location in the northern hemisphere. Hundreds of millions of years ago, the Catskill region was south of the equator. In current-day Gilboa, Kristen serves as education chair of the Gilboa Museum and Juriat History Center, and she's an avid fossil hunter whose impressive tree fossils comprise a permanent exhibit at the museum. And her enthusiasm for Gilboa's paleobotanical treasures is unmatched. I met up with Kristen at the museum and asked about how that passion first took root.
Okay, well, I've been interested in the fossils for many, many years, ever since I moved to Gilboa about 40 years ago. Our museum is in its 20th year here. The Gilboa Historical Society wanted to have a museum, and the town hall had been hit by the 1996 flood, and they were building a new town hall and post office out of the flood zone. So we were able to remove this building and bring it up out of the watershed area where there floods all the time. And most of the people wanted to represent the village of Gilboa. Gilboa was the largest village in Schoharie County in 1850, and it was unfortunately sacrificed for the Gilboa Reservoir, Schoharie Reservoir, for New York City's watershed. So I asked them at that time, can I just have one wall? I have a lot of fossils that I can put on a display, and I wanted to paint a mural of the Devonian forest. And so that's how I started in getting involved. Now I'm the education chair. I'm also the president of the Historical Society. And we were very fortunate to know a man named Nicholas Juriad, who was a 1947 graduate of Gilboa School. And he came to this museum when it was just one room. We had everything crammed in here in one room, and he was just amazed at the twin focus that we had here, honoring the people of the village of Gilboa and sharing with the world these world-famous fossils. So he wanted to do something for us, and the next year he came and said, I want to build a history center. And he did, and it's beautiful. And then the following year, he said, I want to build a pavilion, and he did. And then last year, he wanted to build a community room art gallery. We started it in the fall, and he passed away in January at the age of 95, and he was just such a generous, wonderful man, and we're going to miss him.
The museum complex that emerged thanks to Nicholas Juriad's altruism now boasts a spacious promenade of fossils and murals, painted, of course, by Kristen Wyckoff. Well before Kristen's own fossil journey began, the Reverend Samuel Lockwood was called to preach in Gilboa in 1852, and he was enamored by the region's rich fossil trove. In addition to his religious calling, Lockwood was an avid naturalist who would uncover the first of Gilboa's fossilized tree trunks. 7 decades later, major excavation for New York City's Schoharie Reservoir would reveal many more.
The fossils were discovered in the 1800s. Some of the people in the village of Gilboa did know that these looked like fossil trees and were sent to paleontologists, but they really became world famous when they did the reservoir. And Gilboa was chosen because it was in a valley, a deep valley, and it had over 240 tributaries that flowed into this valley. And New York City knew that this was going to be a reservoir that was going to fill up quickly and was very much needed at the time. The water goes by a tunnel from here all the way to the Ashokan Reservoir. And from there, it actually goes under the Hudson River and down to New York City. I think a lot of people know this, but for those that may not realize that, it was quite an aqueduct system that was built in the early 1900s. So the paleontologist at the time was a woman, and her name was Winifred Goldring. And she is the one that really made these fossil tree stumps famous. They found over 40 tree stumps in this one quarry where they were building the dam. And she knew these fossil trees were something very rare. And they're found in very few places. Because you have to realize, plant fossils, how do they become fossilized? Something really climatic happened here in the Devonian period. And this is going back 380 million years. And she's the one that brought all these theories together and had a beautiful display at the New York State Museum all the way up until 1979, I think, when they built the new museum. And that display had a mural, and I kind of copied that I put a mural in the middle of the wall here with the stumps and fossils on either side and in front of it. And I also have a Devonian lungfish starting to crawl out of the water, and that's very symbolic of this time period. This is the first time period where plants and trees grew on the earth. And all the life at that time was in the water, except some minute insects and spider mites type of things. So I'm painting this mural 20 years ago, and wouldn't you believe it, a group of New York State paleontology employees had found the whole entire tree with the crown attached in a quarry 10 miles from here. They found out it was a bottlebrush palm, because we actually have pictures of this beautiful crown they discovered, and it was a 28-foot long tree that fossilized horizontally, which was very rare. All the other ones were stumps that were rooted right in the quarry where their trunks broke off and floated off onto the Devonian Sea. This was a real rarity, and they changed a lot of the theories about this. It's called Eospermistopterus, the name of the tree.
The next breakthrough would come in the early 2000s, when troubling signs of deterioration in the Gilboa Dam, now 80 years old, prompted a massive renovation.
New York City started renovating the Gilboa Dam. It was literally falling apart. Unfortunately, they did that right before Hurricane Irene. But they allowed a group of paleontologists to go back into this riverside quarry where the original 40 stumps were discovered, and allowed them to map it out. They found 35 more stumps at that time in 2010. And they made more discoveries. They discovered several new tree species that had never been found that old before. And one of them's nicknamed the snake tree. It's Tetrasalopterus. And so there was a lot of new information that was being picked up at that site. In fact, one of them was all the stumps they discovered were the inner core, where we thought that was the actual tree stump. And that's how I painted the first original mural. I was looking right at the fossils, thinking that this is what they looked like, right on down to the ground. But they discovered that they all had these root skirts. They were surrounded by roots. The bases where the stumps were found, there's huge root mounds all the way around each base. So that's when they were like, well, bingo. These trees had like protection around their bases. They had this root skirt that gave them stability. A lot of storms came and dumped all this debris on them, and that's how come they became fossilized. So this was really exciting. So that following year, I think it was 2011 or 12, I had to repaint the Devonian forest in all the new theories, what it looked like. And so it's been so much fun being a part of this museum for the last 20 years. Just so many things have been discovered, and you never know when you go fossil hunting down here in the Schoharie Creek what you're going to find.
So let's roll way back to the Devonian period. What does that mean? That was a geological time period stretching back from about 419.2 million years ago to 358.9 million years ago. What was so special about that period?
Well, it is a very special period because it's the first time that plants and trees grew on the earth. So it changed, oh my gosh, the oxygen level and the CO2 level. For the first time, you're creating, the trees are absorbing some of the CO2 and giving off a lot of oxygen. And these tree fossils that were discovered, they've dated around 380 million. So they're right in that time period of the Devonian period. And the Devonian period is called the age of the fish. The Eurypterid is our state fossil.
Yes, New York has a state fossil, and it's a sea scorpion.
We have a little tiny one here in In our museum, it's only about 3 inches long, but in Syracuse, New York, they actually found one that's 8 feet long. So it was quite a monster in the water. And you have to remember, we were underwater all the way from Gilboa all the way out to Ohio is the Devonian Sea. So the western part of New York State was underwater. And that's why we just have a lot of fossils in New York State. Crustaceans, trilobites, eurypterids, as I said, cephalopods, squid-like things. And right up until the Devonian Sea, at the edge of the Devonian Sea where we are in Gilboa, we're on like a delta kind of, where we have both. We have the underwater creatures and we have these plant fossils. You can kind of understand how a crustacean, like a trilobite or a seashell, could become fossilized. But try figuring out how a twig or a little fern leaf or something became fossilized. It's really something dramatic.
How does that happen? How does something as delicate as a leaf fossilize?
They were dumped on.
Dumped on by?
Sediment and these storms, these mountains that just constantly were sending freshets of fresh water down to the Devonian Sea, which was salt water. So it was kind of a in-between type of scenario, but always creating mud and dirt and suffocating the life. Then as the tree decomposed, it was replaced with minerals. And that's basically how they were formed. And same with the twig or a tiny branch. You know, they were totally dumped on and were able to become a fossil.
So the Catskills in this period were very different climate-wise. It was tropical. And I think what most people don't realize is that the Catskills weren't here. We drifted. So we were equatorial, right? Tell me about what the Catskills were, where they were in this period of time.
Well, you're very right. We were below the equator, and we were connected with Europe and North and South America all together, kind of like one big giant continent. And the Eospermatopterus was probably the most common tree up and down the entire continent, because they have actually found, evidence of it in England and down in Venezuela, so the environment was tropical, definitely.
What kind of tree was this? I'm looking at your paintings and they look large, but the canopy looks different. The bark looks different. It looks like they're spores rather than seeds. So was it related to ferns more than it was to trees?
Yes. We have descendants today, like club moss. That's one tree I haven't mentioned that they discovered, the oldest lycopod, it's called, and you could see pockmarks where there were leaves. And if you've ever seen club moss, it's like identical, only giant, like a tree. And Eospermatopterus is like a bottle brush palm, and I think many of your palms in South America would look a lot like this tree. Then the snake tree is the really unusual one. It grew along the ground, and it is a true woody plant, too, more so than Eospermatopterus. It's just very unusual that they found it embedded in the bedrock in this one quarry by New York City. When they were allowed in there to map it out, they found this 6-inch wide trail with like little roots off of it, and it was attached to a crown, which was even more amazing. And yes, these are all reproduced by spores. Seeds and flowers had not evolved yet.
And so this area of the Catskills just happened to be south of the equator, warm climate. Everything was ripe for these trees to establish themselves. Afforestation, the opposite of deforestation, a forest coming out of nothing, or not nothing, but something totally different. And the conditions were ripe to not only host these trees, but to preserve them in some way for us to discover hundreds of millions of years later.
Yes.
Is most of the fossil forest where the reservoir is now?
Yes. The most fossils they've ever found are pretty much right there by the reservoir and the dam. The quarry still exists, but New York City has covered it back up. They really don't want people going in there, I don't believe. But the one crown that was found, which was very, like this whole tree that was discovered 10 miles from here on top of a mountain, which it blew my mind because all the stumps have been found pretty much around 1,100, 1,200 feet elevation. This tree was discovered at 2,200 feet elevation. And I was like, wow, how do they know this is Eospermatopterus? And I had to really, they invited me up to the New York State Museum to see it, where they had literally pieced the trunk together like a puzzle. It was so thin, and there's a very distinct spot on these stumps where the roots attach. And this went all the way down to the roots, and it was very visible. And they have a lot more reasons why they know that it's Eospermatopterus.
Gilboa has a claim to fame with this fossil forest. It's one of the oldest in the world. It was considered the oldest until recently when they discovered another one very nearby, so still Catskills region. Can you tell me about that one and how interesting that the oldest forest fossils in the world are right here in the Catskills? How is that even possible?
Yes, it's another exciting discovery. It's this quarry in Carroll, New York, which is near Catskill. It's about 40 minutes from here, from Gilboa. And they find roots all over this quarry. And there are roots of Eospermatopterus, the Gilboa tree. There are roots of other type of trees, which is very interesting. This is what's so significant. They found gigantic roots of Archaeopteris, which is a more modern tree. It's never been found this old before. And here it is living next to Eospermatopterus. And the whole quarry is being mapped out as we speak. And there are field trips that go there from the New York State Museum. You can't go there without a tour guide. So it's being protected. But yes, they've discovered it's 2 to 3 million years older than the Gilboa forest. So now we're called among the oldest tree forests in the world. But it is very interesting that it's all found right here in upstate New York.
And 2 million years in geological time is nothing. So you're still way up there in terms of prestige.
Yes, and I do have a nice little display here for the Carroll Forest. And I did a small painting depicting what it might have looked like. And it, too, was next to a body of water. Water would flow over and then it would dry up and back and forth. And so it's quite a big area. We have a great book here at the museum that is the most recent book on all these findings. And it's the Catskill Fossil Forest book by Dr. Bill Stein, Linda Hernick, and Frank Manalini, the 3 main people in our country that study these trees.
And if that book is just a bit over your head, I understand that you came out with a children's book. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, I just came out with my first children's book. I've been working on it for 10 years. I wrote the story over 10 years ago, and then I illustrated all the illustrations in it. It's called Dennis's Devonian Adventure. And it's about a boy and his father, and they go fishing on the Gilboa Reservoir, or it's actually called the Schoharie Reservoir. And the father explains all about the village and a little bit about the trees. And all of a sudden, Dennis catches a prehistoric armored fish. And the fish takes him back to the Devonian period. And the fish actually teaches him all about these discoveries and what the trees look like. He brings them in the water and shows them all the underwater creatures, gets chased by a Eurypterid. And I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end. But I do highlight quite a bit of the museum at the end of the book. And a couple of my paintings are here. One that everyone loves is Where Have All the People Gone? And it's a very symbolic painting of the village of Gilboa underwater with the dam, and there's faces in the cloud. And it's just symbolic of all the people that lived here in Gilboa.
If it weren't for that big reservoir project, all that construction and excavation, would we know less about this fossil forest?
Definitely. In fact, my ending of every tour, usually I say the positive things that come out of something like this is the Gilboa fossils, number one. They would have had discoveries of some, but nothing of this magnitude would they have found 40 stumps in one quarry if it hadn't been for the dam. And then also we live in a very pristine environment now.
When is the museum open? What are your seasons?
Okay, we're open every weekend from Memorial Weekend till Columbus Day weekend. Saturdays and Sundays, 12 to 4. But now that we have this gallery, We're actually going to extend our season this year. We're starting a month-long show of small works. It opens the day we have our holiday boutique, which is November 16th. It's a Sunday. The art show will open that day, and we're hoping everybody's going to do small works of art that are more affordable for Christmas, possibly. We've got a really great group of like 20 local artists that's very talented, people that have been supporting us all summer, and we think they'll continue. So every Saturday from November 16th to December 13th, which is a Saturday, that's our holiday bottle auction fundraising. People bring a wrapped bottle on that day, and you auction them off. And you can't open your bottle until the end of the program. It's kind of fun. That's our main fundraising event before Christmas. And then it gets just too difficult in January, February, March. It's just, we really slow down because you never can deal with how much snow you're going to get and plowing and all that.
How can people find out more and stay in touch with this museum?
The best way is gilboafossils.org, our website, and has all the events that we have every year. It has an online gift shop too, which the children's book is in it, and the Catskill Fossil Forest book, which I highly recommend for anybody that's interested in this. If you become a member, you get our email blast every week, which is great because it reminds you, lets you know what we're doing next weekend or whether we have a new art show. Or you can just contact. I'm the contact on the gilboafossils.org. I'm the email, and I'm also the cell phone that you can call and give me your email, and I'll make sure that you're on our contact list.
As we were wrapping up our conversation, I was still taken by Kristen's enthusiasm for the fossil forest and her personal investment of rocks and time to the museum's impressive exhibit. And so I asked her,
How did you get into fossils? Where did that original interest come from?
Okay, my dad was the earth science teacher in Middleburg Central School, and my mom was an artist. And we did things like fossil hunting on weekends. We went cave exploring. We went camping. We did so many things growing up. And so when I married my husband, and he was from Gilboa, we moved to Gilboa. At first, I didn't know anything about this Devonian forest that much. And so I was going to paint a mural in my living room, and I wanted to do everything green. And my husband said, well, what do you think about the Devonian forest? We're known for that here. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect. That was my first mural I did. And then a friend showed up at our house who had heard about it, and he was a fossil collector. And he shared with us where you find these fossil stumps, and it was said that they were under the reservoir, and you'll never find one. But that's not true. Many of them are along the streams all around here, all different kinds of plant fossils. And then my husband and I, we got the bug. You just go on weekends whenever you can. And when it gets really dry, like now when the streams are very low, you have a lot of fun.
And you and your husband would dig for a living, right? So you were in another business that of excavation in a way.
Yes, we were a well drilling company, Aquatech Water Services. And my husband, he just found so many unique things all over the whole north upstate New York. I mean, we traveled all over, down to New Paltz and across the river, northern Schoharie, Montgomery County, you name it. We've been all over. And so he just loved picking up things. He even would, like in Woodstock one time, I think he was down like 300 feet and a fossil came up. It was always exciting.
And you have to be a fossil hunter or have an eye for that, or you don't know what it is.
Exactly. You really get an eye after, we've been finding these for over 40 years now. So I have a pretty good eye once people bring me fossils a lot, want me to identify things. But if I can't, I've got a great support group. I've got Dr. Bill Stein from the Binghamton area, who is the plant fossil expert mostly, and then Dr. Chuck Verstraeten, the state geologist at the New York State Museum, often helps me. But it is hard to take pictures, and sometimes they just have to bring them here or go to the New York State Museum.
Kristen took me outside to view even more fossils, many of them too large for the indoor exhibit, and she showed me to a recent acquisition courtesy of another family member who works with rocks.
I got a call from my brother-in-law, Harry Wyckoff, who's a rock crusher, and he took a picture and sent it to me and said, should I crush this rock? And I was, whoa, Definitely not. And then he dropped it off. It was from Southside Oneonta. Beautiful fossil crown. And it has the actual vine tree of the Tetracylopterus, the snake tree. And it has, this is what's amazing, are these croziers, they're called, and they're fertile sporangia. You can see the branching on both of these rocks. And see how it's got that rusty brown color?
That's gorgeous. So this rock is shaped like a shark's tooth, but it's huge. It's probably about 6 feet wide and has this beautiful pattern of fossils throughout the whole face of it.
Yeah, I would say this is the crown part of the snake tree. All these different twigs and branches. It was a very twiggy crown. They really don't think they were leaves. They think they were like twigs.
This looks heavy.
Yeah, very heavy. We had to have it moved a few times too because we built this addition. So it's always fun moving these things. I got a couple more over here that are really nice.
Kristen kept the tour going, pointing out fossilized tree trunks, plants, and sea creatures that inhabited this corner of the Earth some 380 million years ago. You can see some of them on the Gilboa Museum website, gilboafossils.org. And then plan your own visit to the museum for a first-hand experience. Catscast, the Catskills podcast, is a production of Silver Hollow Audio. Transcripts by Jerome Kozlowskis. Announcements by Campbell Brown. And I'm Brett Barry, host and producer. Catscast is now broadcasting from WJFF Radio Catskill, Saturdays at 11 a.m. Tune in at 90.5 FM or on WJFFradio.org for our hour-long broadcast featuring updated and expanded stories, plus brand new material. And of course, you can visit us anytime at catscast.com and wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe, rate, and review to help other listeners discover the show. And you can follow us on Instagram at Catscast.
Catscast is sponsored by the Mountain Eagle, covering Delaware, Greene, and Schoharie counties, including brands for local regions like the Windham Weekly, Schoharie News, and the Catskills Chronicle. For more information, call 518-763-6854 or email mountaneaglenews@gmail.com.